diverse bellezze insiem confonde, ma nel ricordo stai, il mio solo pensiero, il mio solo pensiero sei tu. Sei tu.
What a wonderful way to start a show. This is another special of Meet the Artist. We have today a very special guest, a tenor. What better show could you have than a show about tenors, right? Maybe a show about two tenors.
Yeah.
Which
We are.
we have, actually. So we are going to continue with this thought. And we just heard a lovely selection, an operatic selection. Tell us about this aria. It's from Tosca.
Yeah, it's the first aria of Cavaradossi. It's the very beginning of the opera. He comes out, he's in the church, he climbs a scaffold, and he takes the cover off his beautiful painting that he's doing of the Madonna. And it's a picture of basically two different things put together, and that's what he sings about. It's Raccontita Armonia. It's about the Madonna that he's painting, this woman that he sees in church, and his love, Floria Tosca.
It's a beautiful opera. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of our standards. I used to play the role of Spoletta. He was the guy that used to throw around the ground all the time during the second act and kick around.
It's a very hard role.
It's tough.
That's a very hard role.
Very tough.
People think that's a little thing.
Yeah. It's not easy being nasty.
Not easy to be thrown around.
And be thrown around, too, absolutely. By some big people.
Yeah.
Like Justino Diaz used to throw me
geez.
around a lot, too. But fortunately, he liked me, so it wasn't so bad.
What happened if they didn't like you?
Then it was bad. You had a lot of bandages at the end of the night. But let's find out a little bit more about Alexander and your background. I believe you got a Bachelor's of Arts in from Mannes School of Conservatory of Music.
The Conservatory of Music, please.
Yes, and also you were a graduate. You got a master's degree from Northwestern University. Tell us a little bit about your initial training, your initial background. Who did you study with?
I was very, very lucky to get into Mannes. It's a very small school. It's a great school. And I auditioned for the other schools. I got into those, also Manhattan and Juilliard. The reason why I went to Mannes was because it really is one-on-one training. There are, I think they took 5 singers that year that I was there, 5 or 6. And the classroom, it has 7 or 8 people in the class. You can sometimes get lost. As a young tenor, the most important thing, the thing for me, the thing that I always wanted as a tenor was to sound like these guys here that we're standing by. You know, I'm not claiming I ever made it, but to have the technique, to have the ability to do what these greats behind us did, you know, and I knew the only way I was going to get that is if I had one-on-one help. You know, that's how I did in the old days. You know, in the old days, you know, Luciano Pavarotti walked down the street in Modena, studied with Arrigo Pola every single day. They did their scales, he went home. He came back, he did his scales. That's what Mannes gave me, and I was very lucky to have a wonderful teacher by the name of Dan Merrick. Great tenor, an amazing voice. He was at the Met. He traveled with the Met when they were doing the tours. They don't do that anymore.
Yes.
It's a shame, you know, they don't do that anymore. And he sang there, and he took me and beat me up for 4 years. But it was great. It was a wonderful, wonderful process.
Well, Dan Merrick is a wonderful tenor. I knew him.
Yeah, you told me.
As a colleague, and I would say he was definitely an outstanding talent. And I actually was not too aware of his teaching. You know what he was doing in that respect.
After his career. The thing about Dan Merrick, besides his beautiful voice, is he really is a student of the voice. I consider myself that too. I know a lot of people say that, but he's really a student of the tenor voice. How does this work? Why does this work? How do we make this happen? And because he was that, he really wanted his students to be that. He's not these kind of teachers. You know, there are some teachers who kind of keep you under their wing the whole time. His goal was to get you out. Get out there and get on the stage. Start singing. If you need something, give me a call. I'm always here for you. You know, as you well know, when you walk out on that stage, there's nobody else out there. You know, you can have your friends and your families and everybody around you. When you walk out on that stage, it's you and a
It's
big
you.
audience. You know how it is.
It's you.
I'm talking to the man here, and
Yeah.
it's and he wanted you. He wanted to make sure that when you walked out there, you know, you were able to do it, because doing it in the practice room is great. You can do it there, but when you walk out and you see all these people and you hear the programs and the conductor's looking at you, it's a totally different moment, isn't it?
Yes,
It's a
and
totally
the
different
conductors, many of them, as you know, are very dictatorial
Yeah.
in their, it's their interpretation. They
Yeah.
want to control everything, and we understand this. It's
Yeah.
not till really you perhaps become a better known artist that you have some control over what happens.
Yeah.
Because many times they feel they don't trust you. They know the style, they're going to push whatever they're going to push. The interesting thing about Dan Marek, and I feel that you're very fortunate in this respect, is that his exposure, the kinds of things that he sang, were quite varied, meaning, as we're going to discuss a little bit more today, which is it's not just opera, but classical singers also performed in oratorio, and Bach, and Mozart. You say, well, Mozart's opera. What do you mean? I mean, I don't understand. Well, he also wrote concert arias. And a lot of these people wrote music that went beyond just opera. So you had to have good techniques, and you had to have an ability to, what they say, sustain the tessitura, the level, that constant singing, let's say, on high notes.
Yeah, and
can
as
be
a tenor,
very tiring.
Singing
Yes.
Mozart, forget about it. It lives up there
Very
the whole
tough.
time. It lives up there the whole time.
Very tough. So
That's
that
why.
takes-
That's why most tenors don't sing it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it doesn't have the bravura high notes
Right.
that this last aria we just heard has.
Right. You need total skill.
You do,
It's totally
and that's
skill.
what Dan did. Dan,
Yes.
we made sure that my repertoire consisted of those things. You know, we did Bach, we did Mozart. He was a great Mozart tenor, and we sang every Mozart tenor known to man, and we did it over and over again. If you can
Wow.
sing Mozart,
Yes.
you know the saying. If you can
Yes.
sing Mozart, you can sing anything.
You would have to be technically quite proficient in
Yeah.
order to, you could almost sing anything, I would say,
Yeah.
if you had that
agree.
under your belt. You know, it's that kind of singing, tough
I was
singing.
very lucky, and he took me. He really took me as a student and took me into Manus. He was the person who really got me there. He saw my audition and said, "This is a young man that I want to work with." And you need to have that. You want to have the teacher at any school
Absolutely.
want to take you. You know, want to say, "I see something in this guy. Let me help him." You know, and he was that, and he was more than a father figure for me. If that makes any sense.
Yes, I understand.
You
that,
know,
yes.
singing is
Yes.
such a personal thing.
It's a very personal
You know,
thing.
it's with any other instrument. This is my opinion. And I'm not knocking any other instrument, but when you play the piano, if you make a mistake on the piano, you can walk away from it, and the piano stays over in the corner. When you make a mistake singing, someone says to you, "That wasn't so good." It affects you personally. You
Absolutely.
know, am I not so good? Did I not? You know.
And also, I'm not trying to, shall we say, champion the cause of tenors, but
Why not?
yeah, why not?
I have no problem
Why
with that.
not, right? That we are affected like athletes.
Oh, yeah.
Like all singers are affected like athletes. You're affected by the emotional stress of your day. You're affected by things that happen to you. A bill wasn't paid. Something blew
Anything.
up.
Anything.
Your child is sick. You're physically not well.
Your pants are too small.
It could be
You know,
one.
your
Yes,
cos-
your collar is
costume,
too tight.
what happened to my collar? Yesterday it was this
Absolutely.
size. And,
Absolutely, and
you can't
they're
have
trying
it
to
open.
zap you.
Yeah, you can't have it open. You know, for certain roles, you can't have an open collar.
Right.
It doesn't fit the period. Well,
Right.
the shirt I had, yeah, well, we
Exactly.
got you another shirt. Well, it doesn't fit. Go on.
Exactly. Although I have to tell you, just quickly, and I won't get into these weird stories, but I
Love the
remember
stories.
being at Snug Harbor on Staten Island doing a performance of Basilio in
Another hard role.
the Marriage of Figaro, and my costume literally was disintegrating along with my face because the sun was hitting the stage. And what I used to have to do was I would cover I had a smaller beard, and I would use what the technique, and this is not kinky, please. You take the calf of a lady's nylon, you glue it very tightly onto this hair, you then take facial wax, cover it over, and then use your base makeup, and suddenly you make yourself a chin. I could look like Dudley Do-Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I could be, you know, whatever I wanted to be.
I have that on right now.
You do. He has his, there it is. You see,
Yeah, I don't know if you could catch it on
amazing,
me.
isn't it? So that's the kind of you always had to be prepared.
Yeah.
So can you imagine?
No, no,
you'd make
that's
a gesture to shake somebody's hand, and suddenly like your vest would disintegrate, and then part of my face would start melting off. I made it to the
Phantom.
end of the show.
You're the Phantom of the Opera.
Yes. It was kind of weird. Anyway, so let's continue. Well, how about vocal coaching? Did you work with anybody?
Yeah, I worked with, at Manus, another plus to Manus being so small is they get top-notch people to come in there. I studied with Joan Dorneman for a while. We actually did Elisio d'Amore, Elixir of Love there at Manus, and I got to do the whole thing with her. The neat thing was at that time, before I had started studying with Pavarotti's teacher, but before that time, she was working on Elisir at the Met while Pavarotti was doing it, doing the role, and then come over to Manus.
That's terrific.
Yeah, it was
Sure.
beautiful. She said, Luciano doesn't sing this vowel here, doesn't do that here, doesn't do that here. Just to be in the presence of someone. I mean, he's my idol. For me, he's the stuff.
Wow.
You know.
Well, let's we're going to move on a little quickly because boy,
Okay.
we're the time rolls, doesn't it?
Oh,
We're
how much-
having fun. We're going to discuss the different tenors, types of tenors. We have lyric tenors. We have leggero tenors, which are sort of lighter
Very light,
in the texture. Some of them are called tenori di grazie, or I've seen also you have your tenore, the dramatic tenors. You have Helden tenors. We have Loritz Melchior over
Melchior,
there.
huh?
Who sings
That's
all
the
German
The
repertoire.
voice that comes at you like a Mack truck.
canon.
Yeah.
They're hard to find. They're hard to
Van
find.
Hepner.
Those kinds of names are definitely hard to find. So then, of course, there were the castrati, which people wanted me to talk about, and I'm sort of playing that down today a little bit. We know that it was a phenomena of the 17th and 16th century, very Italian control, things of this nature. But now we're going to be taking a commercial very shortly, and what's going to take us into this commercial is a selection called Lennon
in Heaven.
in Heaven.
Yeah.
This is a rock and roll type number.
Rock and roll. How do we get to that? What happened?
Yes, what happened?
What happened?
there?
What did you do?
This is called a crossover artist. This man, he's not a weirdo. He is a crossover artist. And a crossover artist is one who goes to different media, who can sing in different media because of his training. So we are hoping that you're going to get a sample of this very shortly. And we have Alex Kariotis as our guest today, and we will be back shortly after our commercial. Take it away.
If he's right, and life goes on and on, it gives me time to fix all things gone wrong. So wrap me up in a shroud so I can fly away. Alone, I'll dance in the clouds to see me come around, 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 around. I wanna know what's up in heaven.
Plastic ones last longer.
Pork bellies closed steady due to speculation that demand for bacon-related products
Read me this one, Daddy.
Okay, honey.
The less art kids get, the more it shows. Are yours getting enough? Art. Ask for more. AmericansForTheArts.org.
Well, we are back here from our break after experiencing something very unusual. Our special guest, who is not just a tenor, he is also a crossover artist. And this means he's not crossing himself. He's not a devout Catholic. Maybe he is, I don't know. But, or he's not that kind of guy. But I'm just telling you that this man is a very talented man.
Thank you.
He is not a girly man. I don't know if you can say that on a
You just
cable
did.
station, but I did.
You did, okay.
The
All right.
man is good, and you have just sung some wonderful, interesting material. Please tell us about it, the video that we saw.
Well, the crossover stuff that I'm trying to do is really my passion. I love opera. Opera is, obviously, it's an amazing medium. I grew up with a rock and roll singing brother. My brother was signed to EMI America, had a couple albums out on that in the 70s, and he was, when my father was gone, he was there for me. I learned singing because of him. He took me to see Pavarotti for the first time, and he died of Lou Gehrig's disease, a terrible disease. And when he died, I was lost. I really didn't know what to do with my life. I was pursuing an opera career. I'd sung some really amazing places, but I missed the thrill of rock and roll. I missed my brother because I grew up playing guitar with him and singing with him, being in the studio. That was my first music was rock and roll. And when he passed, I need to go back. And a strange thing was happening to me. I would go to an opera house. I stood at the Berlin Philharmonic. We're having rehearsal there. I'm staying. It's beautiful. I mean, it's the Berlin Philharmonic. I'm standing there singing, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, wow, what would a rock and roll band sound like in here? And that kept happening to me. And so it just dawned on me that I needed to go back to that. Well, I loved opera. I love rock and roll. So my idea was to put the two of them together, and in a real honest way. You know, it's really who I am. It's the part of me that still cares for my brother and misses him, and the part of me that he made by making me an opera singer. I had this play that's been off Broadway. We're working on getting it produced on Broadway, and called Holding On. And it's a story of two brothers, a rock and roll singer and an opera singer. Their lives together. The brother dies of Lou Gehrig's disease, and how the younger brother, the little kid, comes out as an opera singer, melding this rock and roll together. And this is where I came from. So for me, it really gives me everything, because when I do my performances with this group, the Rock and Roll Orchestra, I get to do both. I get to stand up. We start the evening with the same aria, with the Tosca, and the band comes. We go into Nessun Dorma, but it's this mixture of rock and opera, and I feel alive at that moment.
Well, I found it also very interesting when you sang that Lennon piece, Lennon in Love?
Lennon in Heaven.
In Heaven, excuse me. What was interesting about that was there was, I remember Birgit Nilsson when she sang at her, I think it was it was a farewell concert of some kind. And because we had been used to her singing these huge German pieces, you know. The Die Walküre, and she was hoing all the time, having a great time, you know. But then when she sang at that performance, she sang some some Swedish folk songs, and they were absolutely delightful. And it was interesting to hear you go from this, from your Italian aria to this whole other type of singing, which was in tune and very relaxed and it was very well produced. So the big question is, obviously, artists do have more flexibility depending on what they're saying. Okay, some do, some don't.
Some do, some don't.
Okay, what might be the limitations? Are heavier voices harder to bring down or to make them softer?
I don't know. It depends on your exposure.
Yeah.
You know, we've heard opera singers try to sing pop songs, and they sound kind of funny sometimes, you know?
Yes.
I think it really just has
very
to be
square.
Yeah,
very,
it depends on your exposure.
Yes.
I just happened to be brought up in the rock and roll medium. My brother forced me to go see Pavarotti. He said, come on, go see him. You know, don't do rock and roll. Your voice is better than that. He literally said, you know, let me do that stuff. Let me scream and ruin my voice if I need to. Your voice has more quality to it. And he took me to see Pavarotti, and that was it. I was hooked.
Now, would you sing things like, let's say, an oratorio? Let's say the Messiah. Would you perform that someplace? That wouldn't bother you. You could certainly do that.
Oh no, yeah.
Okay.
My ultimate goal, the reason why I'm doing this, is my fantasy. Is that I sing an opera. I go out with the Rock and Roll Orchestra. I sing an opera. The rock and roll, I go back for it, do the play. That's what I would love to do, to be able to do all three of those things. And I'm starting to do that. It's hard to juggle all three. That's the problem.
Yes.
You know, it's three different careers. But no, I've done the Verdi Requiem's an amazing piece of music.
But you would say more and more that there's more of this crossover taking place. You're seeing Broadway people like the production of Bohème, La Bohème.
The Baz Luhrmann.
Yes, where they suddenly they were bringing in the music of this opera into a musical.
Yeah.
And you had to sing with some technical ability. You
Yeah.
just couldn't get up there and scream. You
Well,
know?
a couple of those guys, if I'm not mistaken, I think one of those guys is in Il Divo.
Yes.
You know, so
Yes.
yeah.
So it does require a very good technique and certainly a flexible mind.
Yeah.
You know, to study. This is the value of coaches.
Yeah.
Coaches help you with style and with perhaps traditions of how things should be performed.
Yeah.
So that's very much a part of or a need of your education and
yeah.
growing up like this. Now you're also at a disadvantage too, because you had mentioned something before to me. It was I was very interested in what you had to say. That a lot of people are not. It's hard to maintain yourself because you're involved in running around so much
Yeah.
to produce these different things
It is hard.
that you don't get proper rest and you're always under stress of producing
Yeah.
sometimes continually, day after day, heavy, difficult vocal singing. Not an
Yeah.
easy thing to
Not
do.
an easy thing to do. The hardest part isn't the stress of the singing.
Mhm.
That's when you can actually, because of the technique, because of my technique and the people I study with, that's the easy part. It's all the stuff that goes on before and after.
Say
that
the
makes it
business
hard.
aspects.
The business
and,
aspects of, I have a family
family
also.
too,
Family,
yes.
traveling to a place to sing.
Your wife sings as a dramatic soprano?
Yeah. My wife's something else, yeah.
And you also have, I believe, another relative here in the studio who's
Yes, my
also
niece.
a dramatic soprano. They
Yes.
have dueling soprano things.
They
at
fight
home,
all the
or-
time. They
Oh, that's
scream at
good.
each other. It's great. It's wonderful.
Better they do than with the tenors, you know.
Yeah,
The
I don't.
tenors
I'm
have to
very
protect
calm.
themselves.
I'm a very laid back person. I don't. You don't believe that one, do you?
Well, I would say with children that would be impossible, you know.
Yeah.
But anything is
I'm a lucky
possible,
guy,
you
though.
know.
I'm a lucky guy.
Well, this is great. Now, do you know anything, let's say, about zarzuela?
Zarzuela.
Zarzuela.
Yo sí, zarzuela.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That this is obviously, I always think of Alfredo Kraus,
Oh yeah.
who
It's a crossover.
was the ultimate
Yeah.
crossover artist, actually. It's not like a new sensation, actually. Here's a man who is able to sing opera, specialty type things,
Uh-huh.
certain roles,
Bellini,
and
Donizetti.
yet could mix over to this, we'll call it, would you call it, the zarzuela is like pop Spanish music?
Yeah, I don't know
or
very much
show
about it.
music,
Yeah,
or
but it's
kind of a
it's
similar,
sort of like the stuff you were talking about with Brigitte Nielsen.
Right.
It's they're
More
pop songs. They're
folksy.
folk songs of that
Right.
of that culture.
but you have to sing well in those things. Those
Oh,
things
yeah,
go
those
up
things are-
there, you know.
yeah.
They have a high
Zarzuela,
range.
because they have zarzuela operas,
Yes.
and I have quite a few friends. Actually, this woman who went to school with me who's making a career singing zarzuela opera,
Interesting.
and they're difficult. It's not
Yeah.
easy stuff.
And this only in Spain, or do they do it elsewhere?
No,
Do you know
there's a
offhand, in
big
Europe?
zarzuela company here in New York.
There we go.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have them come in here and
Oh, we should give them a call.
yeah, that sounds like a good idea actually. So we talk about musicals, pop music, rock and roll,
A lot, huh?
multimedia, which you're involved with, you know, and then all these different tenor breakdowns, you know. Now, of course, speaking of tenor breakdowns, we've had some interesting stories. We were talking
Yeah.
about. There was this tenor named Giacomo Aragal, who we both happened to have had experiences with.
Mhm.
My experience was in Venezuela, where he was kidnapped by the opposing company. There were
The
two
good old
opera
days.
companies. That was the good old days. You had, two-party system, and each one had their own opera house in Caracas, Venezuela.
Yeah.
Where else in the world, right? You
Yeah.
know, and suddenly we had we have to deal with this, these politics. So sure enough, there was this kidnapping that took place to sabotage the other performance. They didn't hurt them.
No, they just took them away.
They
for
just
a
took
couple.
them away, so
Put 'em on a
delayed
boat
for
and
4
sent 'em
hours.
out for the boat.
Right, and they're in the jungle.
Probably fed them really well. Probably
Yeah.
gave them.
Yeah,
Had nice.
yeah, they probably got some arepas and some of whatever the
Yeah.
hot dishes are out there, you know. So all kinds of weird things happen. So it's not easy being a tenor. I
No.
wanted to point this out. There's
Yeah.
a lot of liability and risk.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
everybody's waiting for the
fortunately-
tenor to miss the high note.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what.
well,
makes
that too.
That's the excitement of the.
They're
evening.
gunning for us
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there are towns in Italy, as you know, like Parma,
Yeah.
where if you go in there and they don't like you, you're a dead man.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll kill you before you leave town.
If you can get in.
If you
If
get
you
out.
yeah. If you can get out too. That's true.
But okay, well, unfortunately, we're coming to the end of our show. You know, just
Well,
never
we could
seems
just
to
keep
be
going.
enough.
You and me, we don't need
Well,
all
that's
this
true.
stuff.
They could shut off the lights.
That's
and we
fine
could
by me.
keep
I'll talk all
talking.
day. I'm having a
You
great
know.
time.
Alexander Kariotis, our guest. Tell us how can people contact you?
Oh, I have a website, alexanderkariotis.com, and I'll be doing some performances coming up November 4th. Actually, my wife, who sang at the Deutsche Oper for many years, because of all the crossover stuff, because of the Broadway show, we haven't had time to do recitals together. So on November 4th, we're singing together. It's an evening of opera and wine.
Wow.
At this beautiful place in Jersey City, Make Wine With Us.
Wow.
And then we're going to be here, I think, at the library on December 9th in Maplewood. And on the 25th of October, I'll be with the Songwriters Guild doing some work too.
Thank you very much. I'm
Thank
sorry
you.
I'm going to have to cut you short.
That's no problem. I had a great
We have
time.
to go. It was a terrific evening.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
to be here. Really appreciate your
Thank
coming
you, sir.
and joining us. We're going to hear a lovely selection.
Lucky in Love, a
Lucky in
crossover piece.
And thank you for being here
Thank
today.
you very much. I appreciate it.